Imagine being the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, walking into one of your own dealerships, and hearing your customers complain about your business, right behind you. What would you do? How would you react? Well, that's exactly what happened to one CEO in an unforgettable moment that shocked everyone. The CEO's mission was simple yet eye-opening. He wanted to experience the car buying journey firsthand at his own dealership. With so much at stake, he needed to see how his customers were treated, what the sales experience was really like, and whether the dealership was living up to the standards set by his company. The goal wasn't just about understanding the process. It was about hearing what people thought of his business when they had no idea who he was. To pull this off, the CEO had to be careful. He couldn't just walk into the dealership dressed in a suit or carrying his signature look. He needed to blend in, to become just another customer among many. First, he swapped his designer wardrobe for something more understated, plain clothes that wouldn't attract attention. He ditched the fancy watch and shaved his face to avoid any hint of his usual polished appearance. And the final step? He took on a new name and backstory, creating a persona that felt authentic to the everyday customer. As part of the plan, he went undercover as a regular guy, casually browsing the lot. He knew the best way to get honest feedback was to be seen as just another person shopping for a car, not as the boss who could change everything with a snap of his fingers. His disguise was key to gaining the trust of both the employees and the customers around him. They would have no idea that he was the very person in charge of the dealership they were visiting. The setup was meticulous, designed to ensure he could gather as much information as possible without anyone suspecting a thing. The stage was now set, and the CEO was ready to see the truth, straight from the source. As the CEO strolled through the lot, he was immediately approached by a sales representative, eager to show him the latest models. The salesman, with a friendly but practiced smile, started the conversation with all the typical pleasantries, the kind of greetings that felt almost scripted. "Hi there, looking for something specific today?" he asked. The CEO, still undercover, played along, asking questions about the vehicles, pretending to be a regular customer with no inside knowledge. The exchange was cordial, but as the CEO observed, it quickly became clear that the sales process followed a very familiar routine. The representative guided him toward a few cars, listing their features in a rehearsed way, often focusing on the model's price tags and discount offers. The CEO noticed that the conversation never quite seemed to shift beyond the basics. The salesman, while professional, didn't seem to go the extra mile to understand what the CEO, playing the part of a regular shopper, really wanted. Instead, it was all about pushing the next best deal. While the interaction with the sales staff played out in a predictable manner, the CEO couldn't help but overhear a conversation between two customers standing just behind him. They, too, were looking for a car, but their approach was different. Their conversation, casual and unguarded, revealed more than any sales pitch could. One of them, a woman, mentioned how she had been shopping for a while but felt like the salespeople were more interested in making a quick sale than understanding her needs. "I just want someone who listens," she said, sounding a little frustrated. Her friend, a man who seemed to be in the market for a family vehicle, agreed. "I've been here for an hour, and I still don't feel like anyone's actually helping me. They keep pushing the same cars, but it's not what I'm looking for," he added, shaking his head. Their words were a sharp contrast to the typical sales approach the CEO had just experienced. It was clear that these customers were hoping for something more personal, a deeper connection with the sales staff, something beyond the numbers and promotions. The CEO stood still, listening intently. The two customers, unaware of who he really was, continued their candid remarks. They were discussing frustrations that had built up over time with the dealership's approach to sales. The CEO, despite his carefully crafted disguise, felt a wave of realization wash over him. The customer experience wasn't what he had imagined, and the disconnect between what the dealership promised and what the customers were actually receiving was becoming more evident by the second. As the CEO continued listening to the customers behind him, their conversation grew more intense. The woman, clearly frustrated, spoke a little louder, her voice carrying across the quiet lot. "Honestly, I don't know why I even bother with this place. Every time I come in, it feels like the salespeople only care about making a sale. Not about what the customer actually needs. It's like they just want to get you in and out, regardless of whether you're happy or not." Her friend nodded in agreement. "I was really hoping this time would be different, but it's the same old story. They try to push the expensive cars on me, even when I've made it clear that's not in my budget. I've been to other places where the experience just felt more genuine, you know?" The words hit the CEO like a cold splash of water. He stood frozen for a moment, barely able to process what he was hearing. It wasn't just a passing remark or a mild complaint. It was a direct reflection of the problems within the very dealership he ran. They were talking about his business, his reputation, and the gaps between what the company promised and what customers were actually experiencing. A sudden knot tightened in his stomach. He hadn't expected to hear such blunt criticisms, especially not from customers who had no idea who he really was. As they continued, the CEO found himself sinking deeper into thought. The sales tactics, the lack of personalized service, and the focus on pushing products that didn't align with customer needs. It was all too familiar, but hearing it from these two people so openly made it sting in a way he hadn't anticipated. For a moment, the CEO's mind raced. He could feel his heart beating faster as he processed the raw honesty of their opinions. He wanted to interrupt, to defend his company, but he knew he couldn't. He had to stay quiet. In that moment, he wasn't the powerful CEO he was used to being. He was just another guy listening to customers vent about the very company he had worked so hard to build. The realization was sobering. He wasn't hearing feedback from employees who might have been trying to protect the company's image. This was the real, unfiltered truth from the people who mattered most, the customers. The weight of their words stayed with him. He could feel the walls closing in as he processed everything they had said. What they described was a business he had never fully understood from the inside, and it was more than he had bargained for. The experience was eye-opening, to say the least. The CEO stood still for a moment, letting the weight of the customer's words settle in. They weren't just complaints. They were a mirror reflecting the flaws in his business that he had overlooked for far too long. As he quietly processed their feedback, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of responsibility. This was his company, his reputation, and his legacy on the line. The customers weren't wrong. The way they described their experience was a clear indication that something had gone wrong, somewhere along the way. As he thought about their frustration with the sales process, he recognized the patterns that had led to this disconnect. The emphasis on pushing expensive cars, the lack of personalized service, and the feeling that customers were just another transaction. It all pointed to the same issue. The dealership had become more focused on closing sales than truly meeting the needs of the people who walked through the door. He couldn't ignore how this impacted the customer experience, and it was clear that immediate changes needed to be made. In the days that followed, the CEO began formulating a plan. First, he realized that the training for sales staff needed a complete overhaul. The team had been taught to sell based on product features and promotions, but they hadn't been taught to listen to customers, to understand their needs, or to offer solutions that fit. He decided to introduce a new customer-first training program focused on empathy, active listening, and personalization. Next, he turned his attention to the overall atmosphere of the dealership. It wasn't just about the salespeople. It was about creating an environment where customers felt heard, valued, and respected. The CEO knew that a shift in culture would be crucial. He wanted to inspire a sense of pride and ownership in his employees, where every team member felt responsible for delivering an exceptional experience. But he didn't stop there. The CEO also realized the importance of being more present in the daily operations. He couldn't rely solely on his undercover mission to see what was wrong. He needed to visit the dealerships more often, engage with both customers and employees, and hear their feedback firsthand. This way, he could make real-time adjustments and ensure that his company was moving in the right direction. These were just the first steps, but the CEO was determined to turn this moment of uncomfortable truth into an opportunity for change. The road ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to put in the work needed to rebuild the trust of his customers and create a culture that aligned with the values he believed in. Throughout this undercover journey, the CEO experienced firsthand what his customers truly thought about his dealership. From the moment he walked in, disguised as a regular shopper, he observed the routine sales practices that prioritized deals over customer needs. The real turning point came when he overheard the candid conversation between two customers, expressing their frustrations with the lack of personalized service and the feeling of being just another sale. Those raw, unfiltered opinions opened his eyes to the gap between what the company promised and what customers actually experienced. The CEO's reflection on this feedback led him to a critical realization. His business needed a fundamental shift in how it engaged with customers. The focus had to move away from just making sales and toward truly understanding what people wanted and delivering an experience that made them feel valued. With that newfound insight, he started planning immediate changes, retraining his sales team, reworking the company culture, and making sure that future customers would walk into a dealership where their needs came first. Now it's your turn to reflect on this story. What do you think about the CEO's decision to go undercover? How can businesses, big or small, better understand their customers' perspectives and use that knowledge to improve? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more insightful stories just like this one. The first story has come to an end. Now let us proceed to the next story. Imagine working day in and day out, giving your all to a company only to hide a painful secret, one that could change your life forever. What if your CEO knew about it? What if they did something to help? The company at the heart of this story is Future Tech Solutions, a fast-growing tech startup known for its innovative products and cutting-edge ideas. But beyond the gadgets and apps, Future Tech had a unique company culture. They prided themselves on building a tight-knit team where employees weren't just numbers, they were family. The leadership emphasized open communication, career growth, and, most importantly, making sure everyone felt valued. It was the kind of place where you could see your hard work reflected in the company's success. But in the midst of all this success, not every employee's life was as polished as the company's image. Enter Sarah, a dedicated and hardworking single mother who had been with the company for over 2 years. On the surface, she was just another face in the crowd, a loyal employee who always went above and beyond. But behind closed doors, Sarah was fighting a battle that no one knew about. She was living in her car with her young baby, doing everything she could to keep up with the demands of work and motherhood. Every day she put on a brave face, showing up early, staying late, and never letting on about the hardships she faced just to make it through the day. Sarah's situation wasn't something she shared with anyone. For her, it was easier to keep the truth hidden than to ask for help. Little did she know, someone was about to learn her secret. Someone who could change everything. The decision for the CEO, John Carter, to go undercover wasn't made lightly. In fact, it came after months of hearing whispers about the company's growing success, but also about the struggles that many employees faced outside of work. John had always believed that the key to a thriving company was understanding his people, truly knowing what was going on behind the scenes. So he devised a plan to go undercover and get a first-hand look at the lives of those who helped build the company from the ground up. He blended in as an entry-level employee, working alongside the team without revealing his true identity. The goal wasn't to expose flaws, but to understand the everyday challenges his staff dealt with and how he could help. John wasn't expecting anything shocking. But what he discovered would stay with him forever. It was one rainy afternoon when John, still in his undercover role, was working alongside Sarah in the company's customer support department. The two had been chatting casually throughout the day, and John had come to admire Sarah's dedication. Her focus was unwavering, even as the conversation shifted to her personal life. Sarah mentioned, almost absent-mindedly, how she had to rush out of the office the night before to meet a last-minute deadline. Curious, John asked where she'd gone after work. Sarah paused for a moment, a flicker of discomfort passing over her face, before she quietly mentioned, "I had to drive around for a bit before finding a safe spot to park for the night." It took a second for John to process what she had said. Then it hit him. This wasn't just a late-night errand or an unfortunate commute. Sarah was living in her car. The thought seemed unimaginable, especially for someone so committed to her job. In that instant, he realized the extent of Sarah's struggles, and his heart sank. John had known that there were some tough situations among his employees, but he never expected to uncover something so personal, so painful, hidden in plain sight. This was a turning point. The man behind the CEO mask knew something had to be done. After hearing Sarah's revelation, John knew he couldn't just go back to his office and forget what he had learned. He immediately pulled aside one of the senior managers who had been working with him during the undercover operation and shared what he had discovered. John's voice was firm but filled with concern. "We need to help her," he said. There was no question in his mind. The first step was immediate, practical assistance. John didn't want to make a public spectacle of Sarah's situation. He knew that would be embarrassing and make her feel more isolated. Instead, he arranged for one of the company's HR representatives to quietly reach out to Sarah, offering support without pressure. She was offered a paid leave day to take care of herself and her child, along with access to a company-funded housing program that could provide her with temporary accommodation. The CEO personally ensured that Sarah's financial concerns would be addressed for the next few months, providing her with a financial cushion so she could focus on her well-being. But John didn't stop there. He wanted to go further, to help Sarah in a way that would set her on a new path. With a few discreet calls, he arranged for Sarah to meet with a financial advisor, free of charge, to help her get back on her feet. The advisor would help her navigate her debts, create a budgeting plan, and look into long-term housing solutions. At the same time, the company, under John's direction, rallied around the initiative. Senior leadership, who had been unaware of Sarah's circumstances, immediately recognized the importance of this kind of support. They launched a company-wide program to help employees facing financial hardship, a program that would be integrated into the company's core culture from that point forward. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with employees expressing their gratitude and admiration for how the company handled the situation. It wasn't just about giving money. It was about showing Sarah and everyone in the company that they were truly cared for. The culture of Future Tech had always been about support and teamwork, but now it had taken on a deeper, more personal meaning. Sarah wasn't just a valued employee. She was part of the family. With the support she received, Sarah's life slowly began to change. The immediate relief of having a safe place to stay and the financial stability to breathe for the first time in months allowed her to focus on her well-being and her child. The stress she had carried for so long began to lift, and, with the help of the financial advisor, she started to make more manageable plans for her future. No longer living in fear of where she would sleep at night, Sarah could now dedicate herself fully to her work, rediscovering the passion and energy she had once felt for her role at Future Tech. In just a few months, Sarah's transformation was remarkable. She was more confident, more engaged, and her performance at work soared. The burden she had carried in silence had been lifted, and she started to shine brighter than ever. Her story began to inspire others, not just within her department, but across the entire company. Sarah wasn't just the woman who had overcome unimaginable hardship. She had become a symbol of resilience, strength, and the power of support. At the same time, The ripple effect throughout FutureTech was undeniable. The company-wide initiative to support employees in need became a cornerstone of its culture. No longer just a place to work, FutureTech became a place where employees felt safe, valued, and cared for, not just as workers, but as people. The transparency and compassion shown toward Sarah's situation set a new standard. Employees now felt more comfortable talking about their challenges, knowing that there was help if they needed it. The company embraced this open-door policy, and it became clear that FutureTech was not just about profit. It was about people. Other employees, seeing how the company had stepped up to support Sarah, began to engage more with HR and management, not out of desperation, but out of trust. They knew that their leaders cared about their well-being. The bond between employees and management deepened, creating a more unified, collaborative atmosphere where everyone had each other's backs. The company's growth wasn't just measured in revenue. It was seen in the trust, loyalty, and motivation of its workforce. This change became part of FutureTech's identity, helping it to stand out not just in the tech industry but as a leader in corporate compassion. What does it truly mean to be a leader? Is it about the profits, the products? Or is it about the people who help build everything you see? Can a CEO's decision to step into the lives of their employees, to understand their struggles and provide real support, change not only one life but an entire company culture? These are the questions that make us reflect on the kind of leaders we want in the world. What kind of impact can we have when we lead with empathy and compassion? If this story inspired you, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who could use a little motivation, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful, real-life stories. You won't want to miss the next one. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.